Hey UVic students, my name's Emily. I'm your UVSS Director of Campaigns and Community Relations, and we're doing another interview with an MLA candidate from Victoria Beacon Hill. Grace Lohr, can you introduce yourself a little bit here?
Yeah, my name's Grace Lohr. I am the NDP candidate in Victoria Beacon Hill. I am a mom of two little kids. I live in Fernwood and I teach at UVic.
Amazing. Yeah, so let's get into some rapid fire questions. Grace, what's your favorite shop in the Victoria area?
Oh, favorite shop. Oh, this wasn't on the list. One word answers, right? These are hard questions because there's so much good stuff here. Okay, Win. Yes, Win, the thrift shop.
Are you a dog, a cat, or more of a goldfish kind of person, Grace?
Goldfish. We have a pet fish named Polka Dot.
Amazing. Do you have a book that changed your life?
A book that changed my life. Oh man, as someone I read book after book after book. Can we come back to this one?
I was gonna stop there.
Sorry, rapid fire is no good. I'm so good at the rapid fire.
Okay.
Give me with another rapid fire.
Okay. What, let's see. Yeah, do you have a favorite brunch place in Victoria?
Oh, Little June.
Nice. Okay. Pushing that aside, we're going into the real stuff now.
Yeah.
So Grace, 4 years after Bill 23, the Sexual Violence and Misconduct Policy Act, we continue to hear from students that many post-secondary institutions have not implemented effective sexual violence and misconduct policies. Obviously, keeping students safe on campus is a priority for a lot of candidates, but I'm wondering, how will you create and regulate minimum standards for this policy to support this on campuses?
Yeah, this issue is so near and dear to me. In addition to teaching at UVic, my other main work is with the Victoria Sexual Assault Center. I've been advocating for minimum standards, not just at post-secondary institutions, but in all spaces where survivors seek to access care. Victoria has Canada's only integrated sexual assault clinic, and protecting that and expanding that model has been some of my the work that's been most important to me. So perhaps unsurprisingly, I am absolutely thrilled to see in our platform a commitment to a gender violence strategy that includes minimum standards for sexual assault response. Of course, this includes and builds on the work already done on campuses, but extends beyond. In 2019, we invested over $700,000 to work on that prevention and response. There's work to be done to continue that. We still know far too many folks experience sexualized violence and aren't able to access the appropriate, coordinated, trauma-informed care they deserve. This is work I plan to do. Should I be elected on the other side of the 24th?
Great. Okay. So costs like tuition and housing continue to rise while students' incomes have dropped significantly during the COVID-19 crisis. I'm wondering how you'll tackle the rising costs of education for post-secondary students.
Yeah, as somebody who teaches this is important to me, and I know it matters to my students. I think the BC NDP elimination of interest on provincial student loans is so important. Of course, eliminating tuition for former youth in care is so critical and speaks to our responsibility and our obligation to youth and former youth in care. In the platform that was released this week, will extend that beyond the age 25, so that folks who were in care can have the opportunity to go to university no matter what age they are now. But absolutely keeping tuition affordable, focusing on affordable housing. There are 2,400 beds being built at universities in the last 3 years, and including 700 on the way at UVic. And this was a real simple act that allowed universities to do this, while the Liberals only created 130 beds in their whole 16 years. So we need more housing on campus, and that's on the way. But lots of folks live off campus. So the renter's rebate of $400 and rent freezes are so critical. So tuition and targeting housing. Oh, sorry, can I just say one other thing that I know has mattered to so many of my students? It's the ability to access grants ahead of the start of school, so that folks don't need to come up with the money and then get the grants. That is such a barrier that doesn't need to be there if what we're offering is grants for students. So that's something I'm really proud of too.
Thank you. I'm also wondering, sort of on the same front, transit. Students sort of make up the majority demographic of transit users in our region, in your riding. And I'm wondering if you support changing the Transit Act to allow for a student representative to have a voting seat on transit commissions in BC.
Yeah, I think this is such an interesting idea. It's not something I'm as familiar with as the last two questions around tuition and sexualized violence, but I think it's really interesting. You know, and I do know that when I take the bus to campus, it's a good chance to see lots of my students. I know how important that access to public transit is, and you know, participation in what that looks like and how that serves students. That sounds like a really interesting opportunity to me.
Great, cool. Yeah, and you touched on the housing shortage a little bit already and how it disproportionately impacts our students. And I'm wondering, do you want to say anything further about how you're going to address housing?
Yeah, I mean, I think in this community, like lots of communities across BC, but it's absolutely a crunch here, is housing across the spectrum. So I'm, as I said, I'm really optimistic about the new beds being built on campuses, because that helps students have security of housing, but also impacts and frees up other space in the rental market for others. I will say that every term, I have one or two students who is navigating an eviction, loss of housing, insecure housing, inappropriate, inadequate housing, or struggling to make their rent, right? And I know this because they reach out to me because it impacts their ability to complete assignments and focus, and the stress and anxiety in their lives is real in such a way as it ripples out to their studies. And so I see this every term. So more beds on campus is going to be really important for that, but also rent freezes, you know, so the risk of it more increasing in rent, we can help minimize that a little bit, but there's absolutely more work to be done as well.
Great, okay. So students overwhelmingly believe that the climate emergency requires both an immediate and an effective response from all levels of government. Grace, I'm wondering, if you're elected, are you committed to eliminating all oil, gas, LNG subsidies in BC?
Yeah, this is, I know, something that's so important to my students. And as a mom of two little kids, I know, like, I need to leave them a planet they can live on. So the BC NDP's climate policy is the most ambitious in the on the continent, and was helped developed by Andrew Weaver and the rest of the Green Party. You know, so like so many of our community members, this climate emergency is urgent to me, and I think a lot of bad things have come from COVID, but we have seen our ability to act collectively, to be nimble, to make changes. And I think we need to make sure that we channel that into the other crises in front of us, including climate, but also housing and the poison drug crisis.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just to follow up, I just want to confirm that that climate plan does include oil and gas subsidies.
It's so yeah, this is one I have, we have a lot of work still to do. It is the most ambitious plan in North America, and there's still work to do in front of us to make sure we're meeting the climate crisis.
Okay, thank you. And sort of back to the social side of things, current measures by municipalities to reduce systemic racism in police forces simply haven't solved the problem, and economic inequities in marginalized groups continue to create generational challenges for children, families, and communities. Grace, I'm wondering if you have any specific changes that should be made to the Police Act to address systemic racism in policing.
Yeah, so a few things. We've created a special committee on reforming the Police Act to review systemic racism. And in our platform, a commitment to addressing these issues was there. And that's really important to me because in the platform means that's work we can undertake on the other side of this election. And I know the NDP is committed to doing that. I work often with police in my capacity with the Victoria Sexual Assault Center. And I know that they're undertaking some training on trauma-informed practice. I think that we're seeing some steps in the right direction, and we need to push harder. We need to look at the structural and systemic elements of it and make sure we're tackling them there. And, you know, in addition to these questions about reforming police, we have to look at where the additional investment goes, right? So how do we provide those services in other more appropriate ways? So again, near to my heart is the Victoria Sexual Assault Center response team. Again, what that means is that someone, not police, is coordinating that care, is their primary focus is survivor-centered trauma-informed care. There's an assertive community treatment team coming to Victoria that's going to be able to take on some of that when it's actually mental health, trauma, and mental health and trauma overlaid with addiction, so that care is being provided by psychologists, by support teams that will focus on housing and other aspects. And, you know, so while we're looking at police, we need to invest in community.
Well, thank you so much for all these fantastic answers, Grace. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Can I tell you about voting?
Sure, go for it.
So folks can still request a mail-in ballot from Elections BC until October 17th. Super easy to do. It will arrive, you pop it back in the mail, no problem. And there's also tons of advanced polls or voting on October 24th. Elections BC has a very cool app that tells you where and when you can vote if you just put in your address.
Okay, thanks, Grace.
Thank you so much.